Sorry I'm late, John. I was chasing a chicken around the garden.
Of course you were, yes.
I've got one chicken. One chicken.
Do you own a chicken?
I own a chicken. One chicken. Yeah. Just
so
one.
you're okay for eggs at the moment, then?
She's not laying, so...
That's what she's telling you. She's selling them to the neighbours.
It's so funny. Tell my wife that. She's thinking it's brilliant.
The Sheer Isolation podcast is presented by Kieran Moore and Jon Ponting. Hey, mate, we did a podcast last week, and I think it was pretty decent. Not too bad for a first
Yeah, I think it
attempt.
went really well.
You've sorted a guest for this week, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Special. Yeah, absolutely. We did talk about this last week, and we said, right, let's cook something up. And I was putting the feelers out, and I thought, let's just go for the jugular. Let's go for the big one. We went right to the top, and we got...
Drum roll.
Mr. Frank Turner.
Mr. Frank Turner. How did you sell it to him to say, yeah, I've just literally started a podcast. We've done one test episode and it went quite well. Do you want to be part of it?
I didn't even none of that. I just went, all right, mate, what are you doing on Thursday? Do you want to fancy a chat on Zoom? I'm doing a podcast. Do you want to chat?
I suppose, in fairness, just like the rest of us, he is sat at home bored, nothing better to do. So why not spend a half hour talking to us? We're still getting used to this idea of a podcast and talking about brand and marketing. We still haven't said, welcome, you are with us on the Sheer Isolation podcast, episode 2. Thank you for coming back. We have had so much lovely feedback from that first one that we did last week. It's been really lovely, and it's kind of encouraged us to do more. And now, as I say, you pulled out the big guns and you got Frank joining us for this episode. Yeah,
I'm really excited about that. That's it was great to do it. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this. It was brilliant to achieve. And after watching the first one, we went, right, how do we up the stakes? How do we make it better? So this week we've got a jingle. You may have noticed a jingle on the way in. Are you putting it in, John?
I will put a jingle in, yes.
Yes, the jingle's in. So we have a jingle. Yes, that's fantastic. So that's really cool. And then next week we might even have an intro video that goes with the jingle. So it's kicking on week by week.
Actual opening credit. You've got the podcast bug already, and you've only done one.
One, that's it. I know. It's all it took. I'm hooked. It's like smack. You can edit that bit out. That's fine.
I wouldn't know, and that's definitely staying in. Now, let's get straight onto a track. What track have you picked for us this week?
This week, I've picked Sober Sun, who are a Trowbridge-based band. They played with Gaz Brookfield earlier this year in a sold-out gig in Trowbridge. And they played kind of semi-acoustic. So they're kind of an electric band, did a slightly acoustic setup. And it was absolutely fantastic. And everybody that came was like, brilliant, this fresh new band on the scene making cool, brilliant music. So they've sent us this video. I think it's from The Lamb from memory, or from various bits and pieces. It's a great song. They're great bands. They're great guys. So hopefully we'll be seeing more of them in the next few months. So this is Sober Song.
Have a little bread, there's no God, and if there was, he doesn't care.
Right. We have got an action-packed half hour, and we've got an interview with Frank Taylor that lasted about 25 minutes. So what we're doing is splitting it. So we're having half this week, half next week. Now, you started off this conversation, and the reason Frank agreed to this was so we could promote the Music Venue Trust. Do you want to tell us a bit about that, Kieran? Because I hadn't heard about this until you'd mentioned it last week.
Yes. So Mark David is the chap who he is Mr. Numero Uno at Music Venue Trust. And Mark David, he does all the sort of campaigning and lobbying to the government on behalf of the music industry. So he was the chap that spearheaded the Agent for Change law, which is, for anybody who doesn't know what Agent for Change is, it's if you have a venue or you have a housing estate and whatever's new, so if the venue's new or if the new, if you are the agent for change, you are then responsible for the installation of your venue or your housing estate so that you've cancelled out noise pollution. That was a big game changer. So we've all heard about venues that have shut down because houses have cropped up next to them and then there's noise pollution complaints. And you hear about this, it's a lot old story. Well, it was challenged by Mark David and the Music Venue Trust, and they got it written into law. So he's a really fantastic guy. I'm friends with him on Facebook. I follow him. I listen and read a lot of his emails, and I try and take on what he's trying to say and understand it. And yesterday he did just a live chat, exactly what we're doing with Frank. And I watched it and I was like, this is really interesting. Right. So when he comes on later, I'm going to ask him a bunch of questions related to it. And as it transpired, we did. So
we will hear the first part of that interview right now.
So first of all, we'll go just give Frank, can you give us a quick recap on what you're doing for the Music Venue Trust in terms of the streams and where that's heading? So what you're doing next?
Yeah. Well, so basically I'm doing a series of live streams from my house, which seems like an easy and practical thing to do. The first one that I did when I got home from tour and lockdown started was a fundraiser for my touring crew, my touring family. So I managed to pay 11 people for a couple of months' work, which felt like a good thing to do. But there was obviously the potential to do more and to do more fundraisings. And I've done a lot of work with Music Venue Trust and Independent Venue Week in the past. And as we all know, running an independent venue is a pretty thankless task at the best of times, or at least can be, and is certainly financially risky, and everyone's staring to the abyss right now. And it just sort of occurred to me that I can't single-handedly save, the NHS or something like that, but like what I can do is make small differences to people who have made differences for me over the years. So the first one I did was for Nambucca in North London, and then what I'm doing is I'm doing an album every week. I'm doing them once a week because I feel like there's a limit to the amount of time people want to see me play, probably, and indeed probably.
Your fans are pretty.
Yeah. I just think if I was doing it every day, people might get a little, little sick of that. And there's also, obviously it's hard economic times for everybody right now, and I don't want to be taking the mick in terms of the amount of money that I'm trying to raise. But we've been averaging about 10 grand a show so far, which is a significant amount of money for a grassroots music venue. So we've done Nambucca, we've done the Joiners Arms, done the Railway, and tonight I'm doing the Tunbridge Wells Forum, and I will be announcing where I'm going next week. Well, I'm not going anywhere, but where I'm sort of conceptually going next week. One of the things I want to say to people is that I'm aware that all the ones I've done so far have been London or the South, and I am finally heading up north next week, which feels good. But yeah, the idea is that one of the important things about it is that you don't have to pay to tune into the live stream. It's not like a ticketed thing, paid entry, because I understand that there's a lot of people who either gave what they could last week, or people who've lost their income completely, or who work on the front line of the NHS, or all this kind of thing. I want it to also serve as a sort of community gathering point for the people who are interested in that too. But while we're there, my line is always, if you would have paid a tenner to see this gig in a club, then put that tenner in. And if you're drinking a can of beer from the fridge that cost you £1 and that would have cost you £4 for a pint at the bar, then put £3 in, for every beer that you have. And because this is the thing, it is hard times for everybody, but I mean, a lot of people I know are furloughed or indeed work jobs that are continuing to work and that kind of thing. And and that's good. But if there are people who are not completely financially wrecked by what's going on, then I can ask for a contribution to a sector that we care about.
Oh, I think it's fantastic that you're doing it. And I love the fact that you're looking after the venues that helped you on the way up as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just fantastic.
Yeah, totally. Although, I mean, it's interesting because what I did initially was just sort of the whole thing started because I was chatting with Giles at Nambucca, and I was going to go to Nambucca and do a live stream from there, and then the lockdown came in, and we both went. So I've sort of let venues come to me. I'm not sure that I can quite see how it would work for me to call up a venue and be like, "Hi, are you guys screwed?" You know what I mean? So, and my email address is very public, and the thing is, the joiners and the railway came together very quickly because they're friends anyway, and
of course.
And all the rest of it. And indeed, Tunbridge Wells Forum, Chris Pritchard, who works there, is one of my dearest friends. But then, funnily enough, actually, the venue that I'm doing next week, I've never been to. But they are
the northern venue.
Yeah, a northern venue that I've not actually played. And in a funny way, it's a reason for me to go there and play once all of this sorts itself out, as and whenever that'll be.
Oh, that'll be special for that town as well, won't it? So
yeah, definitely. I'm being a bit. There's no particular reason for me to be coy about this. It's a venue called the Shed in Huddersfield. But they got in touch, and I've sort of been doing it on a first come first served basis. But at the moment, I'm now booked out for months ahead, and I've been sort of saying to the people at the end of the queue, as it were, that it's a little bit tentative because if lockdown lifts in a significant way or whatever, then the live stream thing might not make as much sense. But then
that actually brings us nicely to the next. My next personal concept question is: once this is all over, do you think there's going to be a platform for live streaming moving forwards?
I don't know. I think that I've been reassured in taking the longer view that a live stream show, whilst it does bring some of the sense of community, a sort of a shallow version of sense of community. You get a gig, it isn't the same. And I remember, a few years ago, I had a meeting with some VR people who were talking about making a VR filming of a gig that people could watch at home. And I'm pleased to say that it was rubbish because they've made every other aspect of what I do downloadable. And in a purely self-interested way, it's quite a relief that you can't download the experience of a gig. And it isn't the same because one of the things that live music and indeed sport and many other things offer is that sense of gathering, which is something that increasingly in our modern society is rarer as we've all sort of become more isolated and moved more online and all that kind of thing. So I think that I say all of that. I mean, and one of the things I find very interesting about what's happening right now is that, like, in any given situation where you've got thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the world engaging with a medium with a new sense of purpose, then people are going to come up with interesting things. Do you know what I mean? And somebody somewhere will probably think of a really cool way of doing this that's a bit new and a bit different, and it'll evolve. And I think that's cool, and I think that's exciting. But at the end of the day, I've spent the last 20 years, first of all, traveling, and secondly, trying to gather large groups of people in small rooms. And
so you wouldn't shoot yourself in the foot?
Yeah, I mean, it is still what I love. And, the big question for everybody is when, and more importantly, how all of this is going to end. I am extremely doubtful that I'm going to be doing any gigs this year. I think that the lockdown will ease somewhat, but I completely accept that getting everybody into a room, crammed in together, sweating, stage diving, whatever, is a bad shout. And it pains me to say that. But I don't. There's a lot of people. I mean, first of all, there are some people who started sort of rebooking shows for August or whatever, and I was like, "You're out of your fucking mind. That's not going to happen." And I don't know. Also, I was having this discussion yesterday with my team, as it were, and like, there's quite a lot of people who are trying, for reasons that I think are defensible, but trying to sort of treat this whole thing like a minor blip. And I don't think it is a minor blip. I think this is a major generational event, and I think that I want to kind of, whenever I'm allowed out of the house, and indeed whenever I'm allowed to play shows, which I suspect will be much further down the line, I want to sort of treat this with the reverence isn't quite the right word, but the consideration it deserves. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to just be like, well, that was just a little thing. Anyway, back to plan A, and it's, do you know what I mean? So I'm starting to spend my time, of which I have quite a lot, thinking about, how to sort of, about the rhetoric and presentation of what I do when I'm allowed to do it.
Frank, that from what you were saying now, that kind of brings me on to one of my questions, which was, you've obviously been from grassroots and being able to just call up a venue and say, sorry, I can't play tonight for whatever reason, for disappointment, maybe 20 people, compared to where you are now doing like European international tours with this crisis going on around the world. how do you start to pick it up? Because obviously countries are going to come back online at different times and have different laws at different times, and you're in that situation where you're going from country to country.
No, totally. I mean, I can say this now as we're talking. I've got Lost Evenings Festival that's supposed to be happening in Berlin next month. It's not happening. There's no possible way it can happen. So we're at, and indeed, this is an interesting minor point. Actually, is just that like we've known it's not going to happen for quite a long time. But if we unilaterally cancelled it before the German government made announcements about lockdowns, then I would have essentially bankrupted the independent promoter I've been working with in Germany for 12 years, and I'm not going to do that. And it's a very frustrating situation for me because I get kids. One of the problems with the internet is it makes everybody an instant expert on everything, or at least consider themselves to be. And all these kids sort of emailing me or tweeting at me or whatever, sort of being like, oh, why are you doing this and this and this about Lost Evenings? It's like, for a whole fucking host of reasons about which you know nothing at all. So just back in your fucking box. Do you know what I mean? And it's really, I don't want to sound overly kind of wound up about it, but I mean, it is, people are like, oh, I'm really gutted that Lost Evenings might be cancelled. And I'm like, you're gutted. Yeah. You're fucking gutted. Do you want to talk about how I feel about it? Do you know what I mean? It's like a career level catastrophe for me in many ways, So yeah, I mean, I've no idea. I mean, international travel, who knows? One of the other things as well, which I've been discussing with quite a lot of people, is that I have a feeling that for a time at least, as important as kind of government restrictions on gatherings is going to be the popular feeling about gatherings. If the British government announced tomorrow that I could play a 200 cap gig and I went and did it, I'm not sure how many people would show up. I think people are scared, and I think people are at the very least very cautious, and which in many ways is not a terrible thing, actually. And I think that it's kind of interesting in this country that the lockdown in this country is not necessarily being backed by particularly authoritarian state powers kind of thing. It's just kind of happening because, in a good way, I think that people have listened to what the experts have saying, kind of gone, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. But with that in mind, I think that there may well come a period of time when gigs are sort of okay to happen again, but are going to struggle for a while because a lot of people are going to take a decision that it's not the right thing for them to do. And I can't argue with that. And I'm going to have to think about, again, I mean, if they announced tomorrow that I was allowed to go and do gigs, I would nevertheless pause and think about whether it was the right thing to do, which is difficult because the other thing to mention all this is that's my fucking living right there. Do you know what I mean? I am screwed financially right now. I have source of income for things like merchandise and song publishing, that kind of thing, which means I'm not going to get like evicted or starved to death, but certainly like my sort of financial universe has just imploded completely.
Absolutely. And obviously that's a terrible situation to have to sit yourself in. I know from a promoter's and from a venue's point of view, all the venues that I'm in contact with at the moment in the Southwest are looking at sort of thinking about relaunching in September. But one of the things we've all said to each other is, hang on a minute, there's going to be a lot of bands who are going to want to perform, who are going to need to perform to start paying them again, etc. And then you've got the two sides of the coin with the audience. They're reticent to go back out, or potentially a lot of them people are desperate to go out, and only so many gigs to go around. You're potentially going to see thousands of gigs and only so
I mean, we're getting into the nitty gritty now. I feel very strongly like as and when I'm out and gigging again, I'm gonna do gigs as door splits with promoters for a while. I think that the previous sort of model that people had of having kind of guarantees and then verses and all that kind of thing, I don't think that's really going to be fair for an artist to charge immediately, simply because nobody knows. For the exact reasons that you're talking about. And I think that any artist with any sense is going to approach it, with a sense of kind of we're all in this together, hopefully, and sort of try and make sure that venue, promoter and artists all sort of get what's fair for them. But, for me to just sort of show up at a gig and be like, well, I need a guarantee of X amount of money, and then not many people turn up and I end up fucking a promoter in a venue anyway. I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that.
So that was part one of Frank Turner's interview with us at the Sheer Isolation podcast. One thing that struck me about that was just it was such an honest interview. He had no cards to his chest. It was all on the table. This is the situation. This is how it's going to be. He was really genuine, honest, nice guy.
I never get the impression he's trying to achieve anything behind it. Certainly not for his own personal gain. It's always very honest, and he loves the community that he works within. He loves the industry and he wants to support them. So, It was it's really insightful. And obviously we've got part 2 coming up next week, and he's going to play us. He's got a song for us to play out on as well, which will be secret until next week.
Ooh. Got to keep people guessing till next week.
Tune in next
for more.
week.
That's good. Get the subscribers up. You can obviously subscribe to us. This podcast is available in video format on YouTube, and it is now in audio format in Pocket Casts. And we are hoping to get it onto some other podcasting platforms in the coming weeks.
Yes, well done for all your hard work achieving that.
It's probably time for another song. So
this is your pick.
This is my pick, and I have picked a band called Splat The Rat, which is it's kind of an offshoot from Missing Rosie. So you may be familiar with Missing Rosie, do quite a lot of really upbeat, kind of piratical, jumping around, kind of really tap dancing, foot stomping.
Tap dancing. Not at their age.
No, foot stomping folk. So Splat The Rat's kind of an offshoot of that. It's more mellow. It's got a couple of the same people in the band. But this is more towards the traditional side of folk, probably as the name Splat The Rat may well suggest. But the reason I picked this song, I thought it was really interesting because they've recorded it in the last couple of weeks while we've been in isolation. And you do see on the news and on programs occasionally of like choirs trying to sing and harmonise together over Skype or Zoom.
Yeah.
And it never quite works because people have different latencies and different internet connections and it just goes a bit wrong. So what they decided to do is they sat down and did the song all together, but then they went off, re-recorded their own separate bits and then redubbed it and stuck it all back together again. And it shows that as a band, you still can record music and get it out to people. So
I've not seen this video yet, so I'm actually really excited to see and listen to this.
Good. I'm glad I could introduce it to you.
This is really cool.
So this is Splat The Rat, and it's called Keep Your Head Up.
Time just watching the spaces that have grown between as I cut my mind on the second best. The scars that come with green as I gave my eyes to the boredom. The sea won't let me in. I tried my best to embrace the darkness in which I swim. Walking back down this mountain, the strength of a turning tide, the wind so soft on my skin, the sun upon my side, was looking out for the happiness that I search all between the sheets, feeling blind. Then I realized that all I was searching for was me, and searching for was me, and keep your head up, keep your heart strong. No, keep your mindset, keep your head long. No, my darling, keep your head up, keep your heart strong. No, keep your mindset in your way. A friend of mine the other day, he told me my eyes were gleaming. He said I'd been away, and he knew the depths that I was feeling. It felt so good to see his face, the happiness invested in my soul, to feel the warmth of a smile. He said I'm happy to have you home again, and happy to have you home again, and keep your head up, keep your heart strong. No, keep your mindset, keep your head long. So I'll always remember you the same. With your eyes like the wildflowers and the demons of change. Keep your head up, keep your heart strong. No, 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 no. Keep your mind set, keep your head low. No, my darling, keep your head up, keep your heart strong. No, 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 no. Keep your mind set in your ways. Keep your heart strong again. Keep your head up, keep your heart strong. No, 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 no. Keep your mind set, keep your head low. No, my darling, keep your head up, keep your heart strong. No, 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 no. Keep your mind set in your ways. And keep your heart strong again. Keep your head up, keep your heart strong. Keep your mind set, keep your head low. Keep your head up, keep your heart strong.
You wanted to talk about some streaming that's coming up next week?
Yeah, so next week, Sheer has seemed to have settled into a Wednesday night live stream. So we have got the wonderful, the charming, the excellent, a guy who I saw on Instagram earlier, used to have the coolest hair. It's Mr. Benjamin Sides.
Uh-huh. When you say the coolest hair, are we talking like full-scale afro or?
Oh, not far off. He had, you remember at the drive-in? Their hair. He has their hair at the drive-in hair. It's amazing. I'm sorry, Ben, but it's all gone downhill since then. I know you had to get a job and stuff, but mate, that hair was awesome.
You've got a weird way of promoting acts, haven't you?
I have. It's all of, yeah, they're wonderful.
If you are a musician or a band and you want to get a video over to us, and then the email address is sheerisolation@gmail.com. So you can just whack over a few YouTube links, whatever else you've got. Yeah, feel free to send it over to us. And thanks for all your kind feedbacks and comments so far. This has encouraged us to make a proper run of this. So we will be doing this every Saturday.
Until you stop listening.
Right. Kieran, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us to do this podcast. And thank you for arranging Mr. Turner to call in. That was so surreal, having it pop on my Zoom saying, Francis Turner wants to join your chat.
It's always a pleasure to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was fun, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So we will be back next week with more. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Cheers, John. Bye.